Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Hi and welcome to Communication in Crisis. My name is Kylie Warry, author, speaker and trainer. Today we're talking more about going from strength to strength in a crisis. We've come a long way in this series and this is the final episode. If you remember back to the previous episode, we talked about going from strength to strength for the powerful and the patient communicator. Today we're contrasting the playful and the perfectionist communicator. Again, two opposites, and I want you to see the strengths they bring to a crisis and how they can actually gain in strength and wisdom after a crisis. So you've been through a storm and you've been through a difficult time, and now it's all about looking back at how we can gain wisdom from that storm. It's all about what can we learn from this. You see, one of the best ways for us to learn is actually by making mistakes and by going through that horrible F word, failure. Most of us don't like that word. Most of us think that that word's a really negative thing, but I want you to think about it from a different perspective. Have a look at a child that's learning how to walk. Now, they get up and they take a step or two and they wobble and they stumble, and they do this over and over again until they master this new skill. For some it's quick, for some it takes a long time. Now, I don't think I've ever heard a single parent going, "Stupid child, you fell over, what are you thinking?" They don't. They encourage them. Get up and try again. You can do it. And I think something switches at some point in our lives where all of a sudden we go from looking at failure as an amazing way to learn and to be encouraged through to all of a sudden it becoming this really negative thing that if it happens to you, heaven forbid, then you are a loser, you've got nothing to offer, and we just focus on what we've lost. But I want you to look at it differently. It's how we learn, it's how we grow, and it's certainly how we improve. So we've been looking at this courageous communication cycle for a long time now. We've been talking about the 6 different steps, and each time we've looked at a step, we've looked at how the different communication styles relate within that step. We've made it the last one, strength, how to go from strength to strength in a crisis. Now, most of us wouldn't think about putting strength and crisis together. Most of us want to run away when we think of the idea of a crisis. But a crisis is the one thing that's guaranteed. Well, actually, there's a few other things, death, taxes, and change, all very inspiring things, I'm sure, but things that as humans, we have to face. So if we have to face it, why not face it and learn from it and go from strength to strength? You see, strength allows us to actually cope during adversity. Strengths are something that when we face a challenge, when we face something that we're unsure what to do next, we need to be able to look at ourselves and go, what strengths do I have and what can I do to get through this crisis, to get through this adversity? People that never face struggle, people that never face adversity, don't know what to do when a crisis hits. So struggle actually makes us stronger. So if there's something positive to get from this, it's that idea that if you're going through a crisis, then you will actually gain strength from it if you choose to learn the lessons. Now, each of us has amazing strengths as a communicator, and I really want you to understand that. And I really hope that as you've been going along in this series with us, that you've been learning about what your strengths are. You've got strengths on a normal day, but you've also got strengths in a crisis, things that add to the well-being of the team and help you get through in a better way. Strengths are also about you knowing what they are so you can use them as service. Imagine how more effective your team, your relationships, your business would be if you're so clear on your strengths and every day you turn up and you use them to the fullest of your ability to help yourself progress and your team progress forward. We all need to use our strengths as service. Now let's look for the last time at this roadmap to better communication. Now we need a simple roadmap when we're going through a crisis. Complex will not cut it. We need something that will help us navigate easily and quickly when our head is all over the place in the middle of a crisis. Now this is a very simple roadmap with 3 steps. The first one is understanding self. Now as Brené Brown says, the biggest gift you can ever give yourself is the gift of understanding. Now, if you don't understand yourself, what makes you tick, what you like, what you don't like, what strengths you bring to the table, what things you do that could potentially annoy others, how you handle stress. If you don't know yourself like that, then how on earth can you move through to step 2 and begin to understand others? You see, we sometimes get caught up with our idea that we're all the same and that others should deal with problems and situations the way that we do. The reality is that we all deal with things differently. We're all unique. And so once you understand yourself, the next step in becoming a better communicator is being able to understand others, to know the strengths that they have and know the value that they bring. And the third part of this roadmap to better communication is communicating with intention. Now, intention is when you can communicate with care and with purpose. Now, in a crisis, having a purpose is critical. You need to know the intention behind what you're saying. And are you saying something to solve a problem, to encourage or motivate, or to tell someone they've actually made a mistake? What is your intention? And make sure that you communicate it clearly and with respect. What's your communication DNA? Now, we've talked about this quite a few times, and again, if this is your first episode, please go back to the beginning and start from the beginning, because this series has been put together with an intention and a purpose to help you navigate crisis to the best of your ability. Now, we've got 4 different communication styles here: the powerful, the playful, the patient, and the perfectionist. And each of them has their own set of strengths and challenges. Each of them sees the world in a slightly different way. Each of them is impacted and wounded differently, and each of them needs different things to heal from a crisis. So it's really important that you understand this from your perspective, what your DNA is, but also what is the DNA of the people that are in your world, the people that you need to communicate with every single day. So we're starting off today with the playful communicator. Now, remembering that these guys are about 30% of the population. They are the talkers, they are the storytellers. They're energetic, they're optimistic, they're warm, and they're fun. Now, these guys love being the centre of attention, and they are attracted to roles that allow them to be just that. So they love things like business development, sales, marketing, anything that allows them to be in front of people and performing. Now, these guys in a crisis can tend to become a bit more chaotic, not take things seriously, and can behave in a way that's quite unexpected to the average person. Now, remembering the famous example of the playful communicator, it's Ellen DeGeneres. Now, what we observe about these guys is that they are talkative, loud, and funny. They want recognition. Now, this is more important for them than any other communication style. If they're not noticed, if they're not told, hey, your contribution was fantastic there, or that work you did in that meeting was wonderful, it really hurts them. They need to be recognised. And they need a fun, interesting, and friendly environment to thrive. Now, think about a crisis. Anything fun, friendly, anything funny about a crisis? Probably not. So these guys can really struggle with the fact that crises are so serious and really not very much fun at all. So to stand out in that crisis, to get what they need, they'll talk more, they'll make inappropriate jokes, they will be very optimistic, and they'll talk a lot about themselves because they just want that recognition. Now, the interesting thing is that in a crisis, this actually has the opposite effect for them. They're screaming out for that recognition that they want so much. But what they're actually doing is pushing people away, because people can't stand the fact that it's all about them, that they're not taking this situation seriously. So in a crisis, the playful communicator needs to know how they're responding and what they have that strengthens them and brings value in a crisis and helps people get through it, and what potentially is unhelpful behaviour. Now, what are the strengths of the playful communicator? They are optimistic and enthusiastic. So in a crisis, this is very, very important, but also in a general day-to-day of a workplace or a team or a family, having someone that sees the bright side, that sees the good side, that's enthusiastic. It's a wonderful thing to be around. They also are creative problem solvers. They will look at a situation and come up with an amazing idea to solve a problem. Now, they may not follow through on that problem solving, but they will come up with the idea and they will contribute their value in that way. They are great at motivating others. They're excellent encouragers. They're the person who'll stand up in a team and go, we can do it, we really can. And it really works. They're actually quite captivating and quite magnetic. They're great natural team players. They just love to be around people and love to do things together and make sometimes the most boring things fun. and they negotiate conflicts really, really well. This comes back to their natural ability to be optimistic. Now, when they're not stressed, when they're calm and doing well, they're fantastic negotiators in a conflict. And that boils down to their ability to be optimistic. You see, from their perspective, they'll look at a conflict and go, what could possibly go wrong? And they'll go straight in and deal with it. They won't avoid things because of any fear or procrastination that it might go wrong. But under stress, it can be a very different thing. The value that you bring to any business, team, or relationship. It's really important that you're clear on that, because if you don't know your value, how can you communicate that to anyone else? Your optimism and enthusiasm is something that brings so much value to you. Anyone will say that working with someone who has energy, enthusiasm, and sees the bright side and makes things fun, that's the sort of person that we want to be around. It's catchy in a good way. They're creative problem solvers, which means that when there is a situation, they look at things from a slightly different angle and come up with innovative ideas that maybe no one else has thought of. So that's a great value to bring to a team. They're motivating towards other people in the team. So when people are struggling, when the energy is low, when people don't know what to do or they feel like there's no hope, then these guys are like a ray of sunshine. They bring energy and enthusiasm and they just get you moving towards that goal. And they're great team players. They're great to be around when things are going well. They're good at motivating. They bring people together. They allow people to come together around a common goal and move towards it with energy and enthusiasm. And their positive outlook towards conflict is really, really helpful. The last thing you need when there's a conflict happening is for people to avoid it and pretend it's not happening. That just makes conflict grow and get more and more out of control. So what we need is for someone that's obviously able to step up and go, let's just deal with this and sort it out and all move on for the better. And these guys are naturally really, really good at doing that. An example of a playful communicator. I was working with a woman a couple of months ago who is a senior executive in a hospital. Now, she had worked her way up from being trained as a nurse in the beginning, and she was well liked and talkative and fun, and everybody really, really liked Lisa. Now, as she went up the ladder of responsibility and seniority, she started to notice that it wasn't as much fun. That she had to start having these conversations with her staff and with team members that were serious, and you know, she was fearing that people wouldn't like her anymore because these conversations were really quite critical and quite negative sometimes towards their performance or their behaviour, and she hated having these conversations. And something she was also noticing as well was that the higher she got up the ladder, the more hours she was doing. And so outside of work, she wasn't doing all those normal things that she would do to have fun and to de-stress. Things like hanging out with her best friends and doing lots of sociable things. She was basically going home and hitting the pillow and then getting up and going back to work in the morning. And she found one day that she just all of a sudden realised that she just wasn't coping, and she started thinking that, you know, maybe this wasn't the right job for her. She started feeling like she didn't have what it took to succeed in this role, and she started devaluing what she brought to the table. Now, when we started working together and we did her communication DNA, she found out she was a playful communicator. She'd never...
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.